Hi everyone, welcome back to Ivan Needle Ministries. Wanted to talk today a little bit about 9/11 and the aftermath here in America. And we've ad nauseum discussed the terror attacks that were a tremendous source of evil, a victorious stroke of evil in almost every way, shape, and form, timing, scope. But I want to focus on 9/12 and 9/13, Wednesday morning, the 12th of September 2001, and Thursday and Friday and Saturday, because that is one of the greatest times in American history, based upon our common union, our common unity or community. And today we're going to talk about that common unity and common union, because these things are not little. What we saw back then was the best of the best. The way people treated each other, the way that we felt about one another, how people rallied around to help. So when you look at community, you obviously have a combination of a common unity. And we're all common Americans. We are in a community as Americans. That's all we were. That's all we cared about, because we had been devastated and we had been attacked. Who would have been attacked? America. So we rallied together as Americans. And when I look deeper into this, I miss that, obviously, the way we all felt, the way we all had a bond. And I wonder how in the world could we get that back? And to have a community, you have to have a common union. And so I looked up common, and of course it spoke about traits and things that somebody could have that were alike. And union is very interesting, because union is defined as something that keeps somebody together based upon intimacy. Well, we had never been more intimate in our lives than when we saw people falling from 100th floor of the World Trade Center, the trade centers themselves falling, plane crash, heroes that had fought to disrupt these hijackers' plans to go to the Capitol and do more destruction, a plane barreling into the Pentagon. We had a lot of intimate things in common. And I think that's what made us so strong. And when I look and try and get an idea and try and figure out a way that we can move forward and get back to that world, we need to stop for a second and just talk about, why is everybody so upset right now, okay, and 20 years later? Well, we had sent troops over. And for the past 20 years, we had worked very hard to form a democratic country in Afghanistan. First, we got rid of the terror camps. We got rid of the Taliban, an evil emirate that was discriminating against virtually everybody, but especially women. And we went over there and gave these people $2.3 trillion. We helped train, pay, and establish a 300,000-man Afghanistan army. We got girls back in schools. We got girls in college. We started commerce. We had achieved so much. And in the space of 3 to 6 months, the Taliban was able to conquer and take back their entire country. Now, that's not by accident, and that's not an opinion. That's a fact. Afghanistan people allowed the Taliban to take back over their country. Now, we left the wrong way, and everybody knows that the Biden administration made a huge mistake. Even Democrats are coming out and just lambasting, just dramatically shocked over the way that we exited. And so many people are sitting here and very upset, saying, were we there in vain? Were these lives lost and these bodies blown apart and the IED explosions and all the dramatic tours of duty and all the sacrifice in vain? And the answer is an easy, unequivocal no. We most certainly did not do anything in vain. We made an effort over 20 years, a generation, to give these people their country back. And they did not fight for it. They let it go. It's sad, and it's very sad. But what else could we have done? At some point we were going to leave, even if we left the right way. We've been there 20 years. We gave these people everything we had: blood, sweat, tears, trillions of dollars. And so when you look at this and try and figure out what the story is, this is a 13,000-pound elephant in the room. Everybody's upset about it. We saw people falling from planes, hundreds of Americans left behind, tens of thousands of people that helped us not get out, service dogs left behind, billions and billions and billions of dollars of army equipment, from machine guns to vehicles to tanks, left behind. So obviously it was not done the right way. But 20 years we gave these people. If you look at this and contrast it with Iraq, whether we should have been there in the first place or not, we went there, destroyed Saddam Hussein, parts of his army, and then we gave Iraq a chance. And the Iraqis, for the most part, are fighting for their country right now. So we can't look at this and say, what's the end product, and simply judge it on that. We didn't go to Iraq or to Afghanistan to nation build. We are trying to help these countries get on their feet. What they do with it after that is not our issue. But the key to this is to look at what they're willing to do or what they're not willing to do. The Afghanistan people were not willing to die and fight to the prerequisite amount to maintain their country. So as soon as we started pulling out, Taliban started taking up more and more territory. And this is a devastating loss. It is. It's evil. It's seeing evil win a battle, maybe two battles, if you will. But we fought very hard for 20 years and did the honorable thing and gave these people a chance. You know, it's a sad, sad situation. But I want you to keep focused on the fact that this is just one battle. Just like we rallied and we formed a common union and had a community and fought hard and went forward and found out who did these things to our country, we went forward and did the right things. Well, the overall war is what we have to be concerned with, not individual battles. And so I want to talk to you today about an interesting twist of phrase on what I'm sharing. So you look at a common unity or you look at a communion. And this communion is very interesting because a communion is a shared intimacy among groups. And when you look at communion, it is bread and wine that is being shown as a offering to commemorate what Jesus did by offering his body and his blood to us. So this communion, it works in both ways. And we need to never forget the common union that's most important, because that way we'll start figuring out that community and communion that we had on 9/12 and 9/13 and 9/14. Because as a Judeo-Christian country, we rallied around one another and prayed for one another and weren't afraid to say it. President of the United States was talking about prayers every other hour. People all over Congress were talking about prayers. So we've lost our way. People are afraid to speak. They're ashamed to talk about praying. And those Judeo-Christian values is what's made us rally as a country time and time and time again. And so we need to rest on that. And the best value of all is the blood and the body that was shed. That commemorating or communion of Jesus' sacrifice is imperative, and it's the most important thing. And it's what can help us get back to that type of bond we had, where nobody cared about Democrat or Republican, masks, mandates, vaccination, all the things we're debating now. We have lost focus on the most important thing, and that's God. After 9/11 happened, we all were thinking about God and our fates and what happened if it was us. What if we went to work? Thousands of people went to work and they never went home to their families. We all thought about that. We all thought about, I hope that person was saved. I hope they knew Jesus. They're in a better place. Well, they were if they knew Jesus. And the people that had families that were Christian, they had that sense that that person didn't live a full life, but they went and saw the Lord. So I'm going to read three things that I think are very imperative right along this line. And the first one is going to be 1 Peter 1:18 and 19. And that's going to speak about the power of what we're discussing now. Okay. 1 Peter 18 and 19 says, "For you know that you were redeemed from your empty way of life inherited from your fathers, not with perishable things like silver and gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without defect or blemish." So the first thing talks about a spotless lamb that gave his life for us. Spotless. Came here, listened to everything the Lord told him to do. Even though he cried and he bled and he struggled, and the devil tempted him in the desert and all these things, and he was human like us, so he had temptations like us. He never faltered. He never, ever failed. And so we may never be perfect, but we have to strive for that level. We have to never forget that, how powerful that blood is and what it did. It's a redeeming blood. It's the redemption. He jumped up on that cross for us so that all our sins will be forgiven, past, present, and future. It's unbelievable. It's so spectacular. That's the first thing. Second scenario is John 6. And John 6 is wonderful because it speaks a lot about from the horse's mouth, from Jesus' mouth. And it's in red, of course. And Jesus says, I assure you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you do not have life in yourselves. Anyone who eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day, because my flesh is real food and my blood is real drink. So when he was saying this, the apostles wondered, what is he talking about? Eat his flesh, drink his blood. They didn't understand the crucifixion and the cross yet. He was telling them, but they weren't listening. They couldn't conceive it. They knew he was the Messiah, but they didn't want him to die. And, Peter and all of them were telling him, no, Master. And he told Peter, get behind me, Satan. So bottom line is, Jesus himself said that we are going to partake of the flesh and of the blood. And that's communion. That's a common union. That's community. That's the example we have. It's not hidden. It's been here for 2,000 years. We're sitting here with the greatest blessing ever. And the last thing that I'm going to share with you is Revelation. And this is really neat because it has a lot of distinction, because it speaks about the last days. And, all of us know that we're relatively close to the last days. If we're not in the exact last days, we're pretty close. We know the devil is wandering around seeking whom he may devour. And we just talked about the devil with ISIS-K and ISIS and Taliban. And, it's remarkable what's happening. So when we look at Revelation, we go to 12, then we go to 11, and he says, they conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they did not love their lives in the face of death. So ultimately, we've all heard this, okay? We've heard it sung. It's wonderful. It's lovely, but it's true. When we give our testimony and we share what we know about Jesus, that blood that we are espousing, that we are sharing, and the testimony that we know Jesus personally, that is the magic. That is the powerhouse, the pack, the strength. And so that's the formula, everybody. We need to go back to those feelings we had of love for one another, laying down our life for one another, the amazing bravery of Flight 93, where they took that plane back and spared any more catastrophes. And a small catastrophe, I mean, it's just remarkable when you think of what happened in Shanksville. Those people of all different shapes, sizes, and colors rally around to save our nation's capital. And all the firefighters and all the transit authorities and all the police, all the bravery, people that went up there to clean up. And I mean, we could go on and on and on, but what was it? It was community. It was a common union. It was communion. And the greatest thing you could ever do is understand and practice communion and seek that blood to cover you and surge forward through the power of Christ. You guys have a spectacular week. Be blessed. And remember, don't just think of 9/11. Think of 9/12 and 9/13 and 9/14 and 9/15 and 9/16, because that's when we were at our best as a country.